Welcome to Goldfish on Games, where can you believe this lot was going to be scrapped for gold? Amazingly, it was a Facebook post that first brought this lot to my attention, and after looking at the auction and having a check of some of these pictures, I realised there might be some really interesting hardware in this lot, and so I had to put in an offer. Unfortunately, the initial offer was rejected, but a counter offer was accepted. So let's get it all upstairs into the tech room so we can find out what we have. And here we have it on the bench. Now let's take a quick tour around the machine and take stock of what we've got. Then let's try booting it up, as well as trying to connect anything that we can try and connect and see if it'll actually boot. Even if it just posts, that's pretty much good enough for me. This is a socket 8 motherboard, which means it's either a Pentium Pro or a Pentium 2 overdrive. So this should be pretty interesting to check out. We seem to have a form of graphics card, network card, probably a modem, some form of possibly IDE controller, and another modem. There is literally some random RAM, a hard drive, and a floppy drive, and a CD-ROM. So let's just try plugging this up and see what we get. And it's currently complaining that memory size has decreased, so I'm guessing one of those memory sticks was meant for this machine. And here we have the BIOS, and we seem to have a 180 megahertz Pentium Pro. Which isn't bad if you ask me. That's not bad at all. So let's try replacing that memory and see what we get. This is some very dusty RAM. Very, very dusty RAM. So before we put this back in, and much better. And that slots in like it was designed to. Let's try connecting the hard drive and see what happens. Well, it's already got power. And this isn't the nicest place. But, there we go. Amazingly, this looks like it's an IDE connector, but very weird. Very weird. Also got floppy drive. I think there's a power cable for the floppy drive in here somewhere. There we go. Oh, it's detected the hard drive. And it seems to be trying to boot off it. And that hard drive does not sound good at all. So I think the hard drive is dead, but the rest of the machine looks pretty decent. It's a real pity that it's missing the side panel, because this is pretty much complete. Replacing that hard drive, easy, easy, easy. Though because it's a Pentium Pro, it's probably better with Windows NT or something like that, rather than say Windows 98, which is what we would normally put on, because that Pentium Pro is actually going to have issues. So let's power it down and let's take out each of these cards and have a quick look at what they are. So first off, we have the video card, which seems to be a diamond card. Stealth Video 2500. Let's see what we find with our next card. Another PCI card. It's an Intel. I think it's an Intel network card. Yeah, I think that could be a standard network card, actually. Intel branded, which I've not seen before. After I finish this lot, I'm definitely going to have to clean this room. The dust that I'm going to be spraying out. Next up, we have whatever this card is with this cable attached. Ooh, now this is interesting. It's a 2 megabyte floppy controller. So I don't know if this machine had another drive, or it's possibly for this weird card that's weird drive that's on the front. I have no idea what it is. And finally, what I think is just your bog standard dial-up modem. And we have the second machine on the table. Now this is our 486, which we can just about make out down here. And it seems to be a DX2. And if we look really closely, I think it's a 66 megahertz DX2. Though I could be wrong. Now there's a whole bunch of cables. Let's try and get these out of the way. And amazingly, this is a damn clean motherboard. Now, yes, we will want to replace that battery, as we've seen what's happened with these batteries in the past on this channel, and we don't want to repeat. But at the moment, it's looking okay, so I'm not going to remove it as part of this video. What we will do is just try and boot it up and see what happens. This thing is booting and counting through its RAM. Very, very slowly. Oh, and we got 16 megabytes of RAM supposedly. CMOS checksum failure. Let's see if we can get into the BIOS. Hey, and we can. Now, let's look away from that before it completely destroys our eyes. Our front panel. And we got turbo and everything. Oh! Turbo mode actually did something. It made it do the checksum the checking the RAM much faster. And it's showing the 66 megahertz that this thing should be able to run at. Oh. And this seems to be a network card with the 10 base 2 connector on it. I always get 10 base 2 and 10 base T. I just tend to dub it BNC and Ethernet, even though I know that is wrong. Right next to it is an IO header, which is part of the card below, really. You thought dual height cards was something that graphics cards did first. Nope. I/O beat it to it. So I need to take both these off. Oh. Okay, that didn't want to come out. And yes, that is a very, very long card. And we can see it has floppy and hard disk controllers built in. And yeah, that's for LED. There'll be a whole bunch of jumpers on here to set I/O ports, IRQs, DMAs, all that fun stuff. This is a very long card. Yes, it takes up all the slots. Because this has the extended ISA slot, which is nice. Oh, and look at that bad boy. It's a Citrus Logic. See if there's any other branding. Not really. But that is a very, very long graphics card. Maple Systems. I'm guessing that's who built this thing. And that is an equally massive SCSI card, I believe. That looks like a SCSI connector to me. Though I have to admit, I've never used a SCSI drive. Actually, no, I have one in the Amiga somewhere. Wow, look at all the look at all the dip switch settings. I have to say, it's a bit of a pity that this case is missing, well, the panels, the front door, because I really like this design. I really do miss these machines with these front open doors. But as it stands, it's not all that useful. Of those 3 Pentium 2s, I've decided to take a look at this one. If for no other reason, the fact that it's got a hard drive. The rest of them don't. But one thing they do share is the fact that none of them have any RAM. The slots are bare. So I'm going to guess that the person who had this originally has tried to strip out anything they could find that they think they could sell. For some reason they thought Pentium 2, a 486, a Pentium Pro was not worth selling and just worth scrapping, but RAM, yeah, that's worth taking. As well as possibly taking a sound card as well. There's an empty slot here with an audio cable coming from a modem. So I think they might have taken whatever sound card happened to be in here. Now in my luck, it was probably something pretty nice as well. But hey, we've got this machine. Let's try getting it to post, as we've done with all the others. Then you might as well see if we can get it to boot off that hard drive, and if we can do that, great. And then we can take a look at the cards. And so I'm going to take that RAM stick that we found in the 486, I think it was, and try it, because what we got to lose. Because I think it might be the right size and type for this motherboard. Oh, just a single beep. That sounds good. And that's not too bad. Hey, it's booting Windows XP. Wow, what? Windows XP on a P2? These people were pushing it, weren't they? I don't know their username and password. That's the second machine. Now let's try rebooting this and see if we can get into the BIOS and see what it is. And good old pause. So we can see this is a Pentium 2 MMX at 400 megahertz. So let's take a look at what cards we have in these machines. And we have an S3 Trio 3X 2X. or 3D2X, sorry. Now, this seems to be common across all of the machines, as we've got this card from this one. What looks like a more or less identical board in one of the others, though it's a little bit different. And then we've got a slightly different colour, and I think a slightly earlier revision as well. Or later revision, can't really tell. But pretty much all of them are running these S3 Trio cards. And we have a network card. Surprise, surprise. This time a D-Link. We have a Motorola modem. Yep, dial-up modem. We also have another modem. This one is Lucent Technologies. And let's see what we got at the bottom here. Though we can probably guess. It is a SCSI card. ISA SCSI as well, with an external port. This is very, very dusty. Very dusty. And there we have it. This machine is now empty. Apart from 400 megahertz Pentium 2. Got the RAM that we nabbed from the other thing. One interesting thing, that it's got these little clips for the cables to make them nice and neat, with what looks like double-sided sticky tape, so they can be stuck down, which is quite nice actually. See, it's on that cable. For some reason, the CD-ROM isn't even plugged in. Might have just come from the factory. Might come from whoever made it with the CD-ROM drive and they didn't need it, so they just unplugged it. But yeah, quite a basic board. And here we have one of the dual CPU Pentium 2s. You see, 1 and 2. Now I've picked this one to show because the other one doesn't have any RAM and it doesn't have a video card. So I don't know if they stripped that one and found out it wasn't worth it, or if they just decided that that graphics card and that bit of RAM was useful and the ones in this one isn't. But they've obviously taken some other hardware, because there's 2 spaces here, so who knows. Now I can see off the bat this also doesn't have any hard drives in it. Well, might be something up here, but there's no IDE hard drives. But it does have what looks like SCSI on board, and this would have connected over here somewhere, or that's how it's set up on the other machine. So let's get this powered on and see what happens. Now, I have to admit, I have absolutely no idea. This is completely new to me, so is that a good set of beeps or a bad set of beeps? Might be a bad set of beeps because I don't see anything on the monitor. Oh, I don't know if something was just not settled in properly, but ooh. Always ominous when it turns itself off. With the other machine having some issues booting, though it might just need to be left alone a bit, I've decided to jump to the other machine. And there is a lot of cables hanging around, so let's see if we can plug some, if just to make it a bit easier to look into. That's floppy drive. That's the IDE. And this thing, I think it might have 2 SCSI connectors on the board, as well as 2 IDE, possibly even more than that. There's probably lots of connections on this, because this is definitely a server class bit of hardware. But with all that sort of out the way, we can still see we've got 2 Pentium 3 processors, though this one had this bit of tech connected to one of the slots. So I think this is some form of terminator, just to tell it, hey, this slot doesn't have a CPU in it. And first time I've seen that. So with everything in theory ready, we've got 1 bit of RAM in here. Here we go, we can see we've got 1 slot of RAM. We've got the same graphics card from the other machine, because this one was missing one, and we've got 3 cards, or 2 and a bit cards. So let's try booting it up. And it's seeming better so far. And we're getting something on the screen. Let's hit pause. And it's gone. I swear I hit the pause button. There we go. And if we take a look, we can see this has 2 Pentium 3 processors running at 550 megahertz. Let's take a quick look at the cards. This won't take long. And then I've got something really interesting to show on the other board. Well, in the other case, really. And what do we have here? Well, it's an ATI Rage Pro, which, if I remember rightly, was the first 3D graphics card, well, the first 2D 3D combination graphics card I ever had. And it's possibly the worst graphics card I've ever had. It actually ran Half-Life slower than just using software mode. We used to joke that it was the 3D decelerator. And this one is... whoa, just look at that dust. Surprise, surprise. It's another network card. So, with one of them being a network card, what do we think the other card's going to be? And if you guessed modem, you win. And again, another dusty boy. And we've got this last one, which is mostly just a backplane card, but we'll take it out because it's interesting. We have an external SCSI connector with the dirtiest cable. A dual CPU Pentium 3 motherboard with at least 2, if not more, SCSI connectors, as well as a whole host of other bits and pieces. This is a pretty cool machine. This is the same dual CPU P3 that we tried out earlier that started and then failed. I'm gonna say it probably will work if I give it another go, but that's not what I want to show you here. I want to show you that, first of all, it's got this SureStore Hewlett-Packard DAT24 drive, which I think is a tape-based backup system, which is pretty cool. I know very little about it, so that might be interesting to look into at some point. But it's got these 2 bays. Now, they're both locked, but I think they both contain SCSI drives. And because they're locked, they're not going to easily come out to these keys. But thankfully, I have this. This is just a plastic connector to fit two wires together. And with it, that's unlocked. And that's unlocked. All it took. And now, it just comes out. And if we pull this, we have a SCSI drive, an IBM 4.5GB drive, if I'm reading this correctly. So that might be actually useful for the Amiga or some other machine that requires a SCSI drive. Seeing that all the other drives were empty, including the two bays on the other one, I'm going to assume that they couldn't work out how to open these ones, and so they didn't take the hard drives out. And this one feels heavy as well, and we've got another drive. And this one's actually marked as a 9GB SCSI drive, which should be very damn useful for something, I'm sure. And I might have to try finding something to connect it up to a regular PC and see what's on it. And there we have it, 7 machines that work and either have something cool or interesting inside. So you might want to sub or leave a comment if there's any bits in this lot that you find interesting and you would like to see more of. Now, there were a few machines I didn't show. There was this Core 2 Duo. It's not really all that interesting really. It's a relatively new machine. It just needed some RAM and it booted into Windows 10. Not much to say. And there was also this bit of video equipment that I think is some form of security camera setup. I have no real idea about it. I have no way of testing it really. So I'm just going to put it to one side and I might find someone who might be interested in it. So what am I going to do with the rest of this hardware? Well, the 486 will probably get transplanted into the Macintyre, and I'll most likely make a video of it. The rest of them, well, there's been some interest in these dual slot P3s, because they're pretty interesting bits of kit. The rest of the machines, well, the lack of space and the fact that they pretty much all need new cases is a bit of an issue that I'll have to work out. And while I contemplate building a complete throne out of these chassis, I've been the Goldfish. That was one hell of a find, and this was Goldfish on Games. Goodbye. Before we... Ow! My light just fell and hit me in the leg.